Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're continuing what we learned yesterday, and namely the idea of these miracles that Moses did in order to take the Jews out of Egypt. And somehow or other, the introduction to all of them was taking a staff and turning it into a snake. And the Rebbe asked the question, what did that have to do with anything? I mean, it wasn't one of the plagues. Certainly didn't impress or scare Pharaoh. It said that even that his soothsayers and his magicians and his sorcerers and even the young children were able, in the Egyptian schools, were able to do the same trick to turn sticks into a snake. So what was really the what was the point? What did God tell Moses to do this for? What's the point? So the Rebbe explains like this. What was the whole idea of the Jews going out of Egypt? What is this whole story of the Jews going out of Egypt? What are Jews anyway? What's the whole story? Well, God picked the Jews and he told the Jews and the Jews and the Jews and the Jews, and God does all these miracles for the Jews and the Jews. God took the Jews out of Egypt, and God took the Jews, split the Torah, the sea for the Jews, gave the Jews the Torah, gave the Jews the land of Israel. What is this thing? What's going on? What's the story? So on one hand, you can say, well, listen, this is our religion. This is our religion. Everybody has their religion, and we got our religion. What's the problem? Says, well, the problem is that none of the other religions have such seemingly meaningless details, and everybody believes them. 10 plagues. What do you have to have 10 plagues for? What do you have 10 plagues for? Take the Jews out of Egypt. You want to take the Jews out of Egypt? Make all the Egyptians go to sleep, and the Jews just fly out. I mean, God can do anything, right? He can do anything. Or make all the Egyptians suddenly, have lobotomies or something, and the Jews, they walk through the streets, nobody's giving them orders, and then they just, start ordering the Egyptians around, and someone comes along and say, hey guys, do you realize what's happening? All the Egyptians are now our servants. Oh, that's nice. There's a good miracle. There's a good religion. Huh? God flips the whole thing around. The Egyptians get what they deserve. That's a good way to do it. Huh? What do you have the 10 plagues and everything? So the Rebbe says it's more, how do you say, not understandable than you think. The first of the 10 signs that Moses shows is that God tells him, go into Paro and take your staff, Aaron's staff. He takes Aaron's staff and he throws it on the ground, and it's going to become a snake. And then after that, it's going to go back to be a stick again, and it's going to devour all the sticks of Paro, or the sticks. There it is. So what's that supposed to show? So the Rebbe says, okay, let's answer the question over here. God creates the world. God wants everyone to know that they're being created. God wants everyone in the world to know that they're being created for a purpose. Everyone in the world. How many people are in the world now? 8 billion, 9 million people. There should be twice as many, 10 times as many. But they should all know that, in fact, they're being created. That's the fact. The fact of the matter is that everyone is being created every single instant, and every time itself is a creation. And even more, everyone is being created for a purpose. Everyone. Jews, non-Jews, animals, plants, rocks, everything is being created. Angels, it's all being created by God. God is the creator. That's the message of the Jews. The first person to really realize this in a positive way was Abraham. Adam realized it, but he somehow or other missed the point. Adam missed the point. Not nice to say, but we see that he did. And the Jewish people they began with Abraham, and Abraham got the point. What's the point? The whole entire world is being created by God from love. And God wants everyone to be healthy and happy and productive and etc. But in order to do that, we have to work. Got to work. You have to work. Adam was put into the world to work. He didn't work. Now we have to work. That's our job, is to work. Okay, what is the work we have to do? Got to go out of Egypt. You have to go out of Egypt. Egypt means nature. Nature. And nature is very dominant in this world. Nature is dominant to the point where everyone feels and thinks, me too, that that's all there is nature. That's all. In order to have any perception of God, what God really is, you have to have faith. You have to have emunah. It's not understandable. It's something that's beyond any comprehension. It's a feeling in your soul. I'll tell you a small thing yesterday. Every day since the war started over here in Israel, so I figure I'll do something. So I go down to this hospital that's right nearby me, and I ask people to put on tefillin. I'm not in the hospital. I stand outside. And there's people going all the time, people visiting, and there's people there's sick people and healthy people and all the people. There's a big sort of a open place over there where anyway. So I ask people to put on tefillin. Usually people are, either they do put on Jews, they put on. There's a lot of Arabs there, a lot of Arabs, and everybody's nice. Everyone's very nice, and I bless everybody. Everybody's created by, and it's the job of the Jews to bless everybody. That's the job. Anyway, so yesterday, some guy says to me that Judaism is a lie. It's all a fake. It's all made up. The rabbis invented the whole entire thing. There's no such thing. So I said to him, well, I mean, are you Jewish? He said, yes, I am. So I said, well, maybe you're not Jewish. He said, what are you talking about? I am Jewish. I'm just as Jewish as you. So I said, tell me, why is it so important to you that you're Jewish? You just finished telling me that Judaism is a big lie. It's a big bluff. It was made up by the rabbis. It's changes all the time. The whole thing is just a big invention. So why do you care so much if you're Jewish or not? The whole thing is just a big lie, according to you. Why is it so? I mean, you're not a religious Jew. You're not an observant Jew. So why do you care about, take a person who's not a religious Catholic. He doesn't care about being called a not good Catholic, something like that. All of a sudden, it's very important. Said, yeah, well, so then where does it come from? I said, it comes from your soul. You're a Jew, it's a soul. And that's where the commandments come from. Your soul wants to do what God wants. And one of the things God wants is the commandments. You don't want to do the commandments, okay, but I mean, you do want to be a Jew. Yeah, he said, okay, good. And we shook hands. But the fact is it's something beyond understanding. That is identity. It's what's called nature. Just like a dog has a nature that it barks. Dogs don't chirp like birds, right? Why do they have that nature? That's how God created them. Jews have a nature. The nature of the Jews is that they feel, they know, whether they want it or not, they know it or not, they resist it or not. But Jews have a nature that they somehow or other deep down know that there's a creator to the world and that there's a plan for the world to make the world a good place. And the Egyptians, the whole essence of the Egyptians is that I'm the boss. I'm the boss. The world is for me. If there is God, he's something that can serve me. And the Egyptians basically, they almost got it down. They controlled all of nature. But the one thing they couldn't control is the creator. And everyone agreed with the Egyptians except for Moses. Moses said, no, it's not going to go. Not going to go. I'm taking you all out of Egypt. Okay, so the first, and Moses also didn't want to go into Paro. He was very afraid, right? He was afraid. Paro rules the whole world. Who wants to go? So God says, listen, Moses, take your stick, throw it on the ground. It's going to be a serpent. Show that to Paro. It's going to knock him out. You're going to see what's going to happen. So Moses does it. He gets into Paro. How he gets into Paro is totally not understandable. But he gets into Paro, and he throws his stick down to the ground, and it turns into a snake. And absolutely no. Paro looks around and says, "What? Who brought this guy in here? Whatever." It's like somebody telling the same joke. Standing up and telling the same joke like 50 times in a row. Right? A stand-up community. Come on, I heard this before. He's taking a stick and throwing it down at the ground. It's supposed to impress me. Everybody does it. So what was the purpose of it? So the Rebbe says, okay, let's look at this. Ready? Moses is a representative of the creator. How does the creator create the world? The creator creates the world by putting his infinite light into what's called vessels. He creates the vessels, he creates the light. And this is what the Kabbalah books talk about, Kabbalistic books talk about. There's different levels. And then there's spiritual levels and there's physical levels. And the physical, until it comes down, it says one of the things that's hinted at, this is in the beginning of creation, that there was a river that came out from this place called Eden, and the river broke up into 4 tributaries. And this place, Eden, that's the source of all physical being, if you want to call it. That's what's called Chachma of Atzilut. And it comes down into the garden, which the garden is Malchut of Atzilut, that's like God's mouth. And for them, this river, from there, this river separates, that all this is unity of God. But then this river separates into four heads, and these four heads are like the source of Egypt and Babylon and all these places that made trouble for the Jews. Okay, now let's go. And Natasha, now one minute. So now we can understand, this whole idea. Am I recording? Yes. Now we can understand the idea of what were the miracles. What were the miracles that God did, Sharol Kodesh Baruch Hu, that God showed to Egypt? Like it says, Vayedu Mitzrayim, that the Egyptians will know that I am God. The word Yadu means to know, but the word Yadu also means to be broken. Mishavira, like it says, V'yadu bam et anshe Sukkot, that he fought with them, he destroyed whatever these people of Sukkot. This is talking about, who is it? 1 second, Gilad or someone. I'm sorry, I should have looked this up, but I did not. I did not look it up. 1 second, 1 minute. Huh? Yes. Give me 1 second. Excuse me. One moment. Nun Zion base. Should I do? Okay. 1 minute. Sorry for the time. My curiosity has become aroused, and I should have looked at this up yesterday, but I didn't. So I'll show you where it is. Here, where it goes. The word Yadu means to destroy, to break. To break. Here we go. Here it is. There it is. There it is. It's Shoftim, right? That's right. It's one of the judges. It's like Gilad or someone, or Ches Tetzayin. You want to see who it is? And it's not really important, but it's not really important for it. It's important service, but not for this class. But let's do it anyway. I already got stuck in this thing. Here we go. Chet. Tanakh is pretty interesting. This is the book of Judges. The Judges, there was 440 years of Judges before King Saul started off. Before the book of Shmuel, before Samuel chose Saul and then chose King David. Here we go. Oh, that's what it said. Okay. And excuse me. What did we say over here? Yeah. Chet Tet Zion. This is a story about, here it goes. Yiftach. Yeah, that's right. Yiftach. Yiftach is a surprising story over there. Yiftach was one of the judges, the Shoftim. Anyway, the Edu means to destroy. He destroyed the people of Sukkot. The Inyan, that's what, so it means that either God sent the miracles in order that Egypt should know, and also that Egypt should be destroyed. What does it mean? If they're destroyed, what can they know? There's no one there to know. It was just like this. It's explained above, the Kedela Hotzi, in order to take out the spark of godliness from the klippa, from the shells, from the selfishness that surrounds it. Efshar, it's impossible except by means of breaking. You have to break the klippa first. Kamasha la'agos, like we talked about before yesterday, if you remember, like a nut. A nut has inside of it a fruit, and the fruit is very tasty. A nut, if you like nuts, but no matter how much you like nuts, if you try to eat the nut as it is, nothing is going to come out of it because there's a hard shell. So you have to break the shell. The Inyan is that by means of the breaking of the shell, Yochel Yoter can be revealed godliness, Banitzutz, to the spark which is inside of it, until it can come connected to God. That's the idea of these horses and the riders, God elevated. Right? It says that he threw into the sea, but Rama also means to elevate. Rochev is the klippa. This is the shells. This is the that is a selfishness and separation that God creates to give the appearance, the impression that God doesn't exist, that the world is autonomous. It's like a nut. It's like the shell on a nut. The shell gives the impression that there's nothing inside of it. It's just this hard thing that's inedible. And this covers over the spark. This is the idea of Merkava's paro. That's the idea of the Merkava paro. I mean, I imagine the reason that God makes these shells on nuts and things like that is so that animals won't eat them, because the nut inside is the seed. So it falls into the ground, and eventually there on the ground it rots. But if it's on the tree, so it's too easily edible. Who knows? Anyway, that's one of the God has his reasons to do it. But it's the same thing with Egypt. Egypt and the world. It's a shell. It gives the impression that that's all there is the world. And you have to get rid of this impression. By us personally, it means our ego, our certainty that all that there is me, that I'm the most important thing there is in the world, and I can decide everything, and that everything depends on me. And this is subdued a little bit by religion. Religion says, listen, forget about good. It's true, you're the main thing in the world. Religion says, well, that's a basic lie. But don't try to get the good which is in this world. Try to get the good which is in the world to come. So that a little bit sort of calms down the selfishness. It puts it into a bigger sort of a picture. Well, that's not the point of Judaism. The point of Judaism is to do away with this false selfishness totally. God wants us to be selfish, but he wants us to be selfish on his terms. He wants us to live in Israel. He wants us to have nice houses. He wants us to till the land. He wants us to be rich. He wants all these things God wants. He wants us to be happy. Those things come from egotism, but that's good egotism. That's good egotism. Paro was totally selfish. Egotism without godliness, not using your ego for what God wants it all. That's paro, and that has to be broken. And by means of breaking, Nidgalat is revealed the spark of godliness which is inside of Ein Sof. That's the other meaning of Yadu, to know. This is now we can understand why in splitting of the sea, it says V'yadu Mitzrayim, that the Egyptians will know that I am God. L'chiora tamu, at first glance, it's a big. God split the sea, drowned all the Egyptians, in order that those who got drowned will know that I'm God. Who's going to know? It says that lo yisher b'hem echad, not even one of those pursuing the Jews remained alive. God drowned everyone. So who knows? It's because there's two meanings to know. One meaning of yadu, to know, means intellectually, to know, to realize, and the other one means to be broken, to break. And by means of this, there was Gilui Or and Sof, there was revealed godliness, and then it suits into the sparks, so that they will know Yediyah Mamish, the other meaning of knowing, the feeling godliness. Ki Hashem. Like it says on this question. So it's the same thing with us. It's the same thing with us. When a person relieves himself a little bit of his false egotism, then it's possible for him to see godliness. Now, it's a very interesting thing now in the world, I mean, it's been going on for a long time, that people realize that what they think and what they feel is wrong. There's a whole big, industry today of self-improvement. Self-improvement basically means that the way you think the world is and the way you react to the world is wrong. And if you go according to your nature, you're never going to be successful. You're never going to be happy. You're never going to be calm. You're never going to be healthy, right? You have to think differently and act differently and have different attitude toward everything. So people realize nowadays that your ego can get you into bad things. It's self-destructive. Self-destructive. Judaism comes to say that is true, yes, but that's the bad part. What's the good part? What's the goal? What's the goal of removing your false ego? What's the goal? What's the purpose? To get a new ego, success, the pleasure. That's the goal. So Judaism comes along and says, no, the goal is to do what God wants. then the world is going to be good. To do what God wants, right? Not what you think God wants, not what you define God wants, but what God really wants. How do you know what God really wants? That's the idea of the Torah. That's the Jews getting out of Egypt and receiving the Torah. Similarly, it was the inyan of Esser Makot. That's the whole thing of the 10 plagues that God sent onto the Egyptians in order to break these shells, to break the egotism, and to take from them the sparks. So each plague that was brought was a different treatment that God did in order to break a different aspect of this egomania, which was called Egypt. And it's called that today. I mean, also in at least in, because it's not referring to the Egyptian people, one particular nation, that God has something against this nation more than the other. It's some sort of, how do they call it nowadays? What do they call it? They call it I can't remember. Wiping out a whole race. There's I skip my mind. Anyway, there's nothing particularly against the Egyptians or against the Arabs or against this. The opposition is to this intense egotism that doesn't allow any place for a realization that there's a creator. But Israel, the Jewish people themselves, they didn't have to have all these miracles. Because Jews, in their nature, like we said, the nature of a Jew is that he knows he's a Jew. The nature of a Jew is that he knows that there's God. Like it says, that the Jewish people believed. The Jewish people had trouble believing because from the outside, they were forced to not act Jewish. They were forced, and they resisted. They defied this. But how long can you live like that? And you couldn't do anything positive. But the fact of the matter is, the Jews automatically, as soon as they were freed, they believed in God. The problem is when they got free, they believed in God, but they also had egos. They have free choice. And God wants things to be equal. So we see what happened. That's the whole book of Numbers, that all these troubles that the Jews made for God. And not just Numbers. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to see how they worship the golden calf. Any case, Vayishma, that's what it says, Vayamin that the people believed and they listened. Ki pakad Hashem, and they understood that God has come and visited them. After 210 years of slavery, the Jewish people now realize that the time has come. Rak the Shvil, but in order to take these sparks, Hamovilim, Hamuvlaim, which are swallowed up into these klippas in Egypt, Hotzrach, it was necessary to be the 10 plagues. Shezeu bishvil, this is in order to know that Egypt should be broken. Now we can understand why God turned the stick into a snake. Now we can understand, and this, Yuvan, Asiba, Amophis, we can understand the miracle of Rishon, the first miracle, She'ereh Hashem Yisparech, that God, blessed be He, showed to Paro, Shehu Inyan, which was the turning of the stick into a snake. What's the point? Here we go. Ready? Make this a little bit bigger. Oh. Shenefach Hamata, that Moses' staff transformed L'Nachash to be a serpent. Shezeu Hakdama, this is a forward, this is an introduction to all of the 10 plagues. In other words, Moses was showing to Paro in a shortened way, encapsulated way, what's in store for him. What's in store for him? What's in store for him? A snake turned into a stick turned into a snake, a snake turned into a stick. What's it got to do with Paro? This is not a plague. It didn't affect Paro at all. It affected the stick, and it didn't even affect the stick. The stick became a snake, and it came back and made a stick again. So what's he trying to show to Paro? What's the point of this whole thing? Says the Rebbe, that is exactly the point of the Jewish people in Egypt, going out of Egypt, receiving the Torah. And the whole purpose of the Jewish people in the world is symbolized by this simple 5-minute trick. What is it? Kihine, behold, the whole idea of the 10 plagues was explained. Shu Shaver is to break the klippas, to break this selfishness, this, how do you say, egotism, which is the level of yesh v'davar b'fnei atzmo, right? The certainty of Egypt, that they are the kings of the world, that the Paro thought he was God, he created himself, it said he created the river, he created everything, like it says, Li Ya'iri, Ya'ori, to me is the river, I created the Nile River, said Paro, I created myself. Anybody disagree with me? And if anyone stood in the crowd said, Your Majesty, I would like to disagree, that's it, right? You've never heard from that person anymore. No one disagrees with the king. Paro really believed it. And not only that, no one disagreed with him. Everyone agreed, right? 100%. And what about the Jews, that they're God's people? They're our slaves. So Egypt was right? They were ruling. Might rates right, how do they say? They admitted that there is God, but they just say he's very far away. He's the God of gods. And Mufti, this whole idea of the 10 plagues was to show to them that even though because they are klippa, they are a klippa and sitra achra, that this whole egotism they have is just a shell and another side that's covering over the truth. They are not the truth. Nevertheless, even though that they are evil and that they are bad, but they are not separate from God. They imagine themselves to be separate from God. They're convinced they're separate from God. In fact, they're convinced that they are God. But nevertheless, the whole idea of the plagues was to show them that it's not so. God is the creator. He creates everything. Everything is being created by God. There's not two creators. There's not two, how do you say, the realms. There's the realm of the creator and there's the realm of the creation. There's God and there's the world. It's not so. In fact, everything that exists is receiving its life and its very being from God's holiness. B'kol rega, every instant. And really, there is nothing which is really separate by itself, like they thought. Like their false thoughts. But the world is totally united and harmonious with God. So why doesn't it say so? One second. Paro can say, okay, good, if I'm created by God, so God is creating me to go against him. So, I'm doing what God wants. That's my nature. Says the Rebbe, no, that's the whole point of Moses. The whole point of the miracles is shechayot nimshach lahem, that you think that you can do what you want. This is because your life is being drawn to you by means of all these concealments. What's revealed to you is your own egotism. That's what you feel. That's what you think reality is. Don't act according to those impulses. Those impulses come from what's called the ishtalshlus, the chain of creation, which God has made so great, has starting to concealed his creative force and the fact that he's creating you until became a person like you, Paro, that you can say, I created the river. I created the Nile River and I created myself. And therefore, when there's this revelation, which is above all these contractions, the source of all, when the source of all of the world is revealed, then all of the egotism goes away. That's the whole idea of the 10 plagues that God did. They weren't 10 plagues. There were 10 miracles that God made in order to hopefully convince the Egyptians that they are creations, that God is creating them, and that they should act like what the Creator wants and not like what the creation wants. This showed the miracle, the first miracle of the staff, that it turned into a snake. What does it mean? The staff of Moses, this is Hamshacha B'Hatiyah. The staff, this shows on holiness. Shevet, the whole idea of Shevet means drawing down godliness. Hamshacha, blessing. Kamo Kochava Shavit, like it's like a shooting star. It's shooting because it's a big long line. It's drawn out. The thing is drawn out. Hainu, Kol Hamshacha, this is the blessings that come down that God creates the whole world with. The Seder Ishtalshus, the whole order of creation of the world from the highest levels into the lowest levels. This is called the staff. Staff of life, staff of reality. That's the stick. What's the snake? The snake is Makar Klippos. That's how all of this life that God sends down to the world can appear to be separate. That's the serpent of Egypt. Like it says, a Tanina Gadol, that it says that in one of the prophets, what is it? This is the same prophet. I think it's in Jeremiah. It says the Tanina Gadol, Rovitz. You wanted to see. Here we go. Wait 1 second. Tanina Gadol. 1 minute. 1 minute. What's going on here? Okay. Anyway, it's okay. Let's go. But Egypt is called the big serpent, which lurks in the waters. So the serpent, that shows the how do you say, the possibility of misusing God's blessing for egotism, to misinterpret the world, to think that I'm God. That's the serpent. The serpent is egotism. And God wants it to be this way. He wants it to be this way so that we'll resist it, we'll defy it, we'll transform it. That's what Moses showed to Paro. Moses and Aaron, they show how it is that this staff transformed to be a serpent. Namely, what does it mean? That the light which is drawn down of godliness, holiness, which is called the staff, this is the real true source constantly in the existence of the serpent. Mokra Klipper, which is the source of all evil and separateness and death and destruction. Like it says, Raglea Yardos Movis. This is in what is it in Mishleh, Proverbs? Her feet go down to death. That God's kingship rules over everything, even over the evil. But it comes down by Hishtalshus, it's Simsum. The evil doesn't feel that it's being created. Until there can be exactly the opposite. That from the staff can become a serpent. By means of many contractions and concealments and veils, etc., etc. That's what God wants, that there should be a world. And this conceals that everything is really coming from the staff so much that there can be this big serpent which is lurking in the waters and says, Li Yair, that the river, it belongs to me. So that's when Moses came into Paro. Moses came to Paro to show him that the staff can turn into a serpent. In other words, your whole existence, Paro, comes from God. I'm not your enemy. That's what Moses is coming to say. I'm not your enemy. I'm not opposing you. I'm trying to show you who you really are, Paro. You are a creation of God. But God has a desire. He has a will. You're not following that will. God is creating you, and you're going against your creator. And what did Paro say? That's what you say. But I say exactly the opposite. I say, I'm the creator. I create everything, and you're going against me. So Moses comes and says, listen, the fact of the matter is, here, let me show you. He took a stick and he turned into a snake. He said, the stick is me. The snake is you. You come from me. And afterwards, he showed how the snake went back to a stick again. And also it says that the staff of Aaron swallowed up the other staffs. That this serpent, of which is represented by Paro, came to be surrendered and harmonious with holiness, elokus, like it was in the beginning. That's the union of raising up the sparks, like we said. And that he showed to Paro and to Egypt, asher einam yesh b'davar finansma, that they are not something separate on their own. Ki'im b'kol rega, but every instant, nimshach lahem chayus melokus, there's drawn down life from God. But God conceals himself. But whenever he wants to, right? If he wants to, he can transform himself to pure evil, which is the serpent. Lamata v'hayu kalo ayu klipos, and then all of a sudden, I'm sorry, nefach hanachash. Then he can take the serpent and he can transform it back to its source, and it'll be like nothing. and simple like this will be all the miracles that will know Egypt that I am God. I'm just reminded of something that Paro can realize that he's being created by God, and because I once had to occupy these kids. The kids were like really making a lot of noise, and I had to somehow or other keep them occupied. So what did I do? I took on my hand and I made here. Let's see if I could show you how it is. I'll just go like this. See, so I made two little dots on my hand. Let's see if I can do this here. Here, see, I made two dots like this. Watch this. You go like this. I guess everybody knows this. One dot here, and another dot over here, right there. And I put, there it is, and I put something over it like this. Let's see if I can do this here. Oh, here. Let's see, like this. And I said to the kids, it doesn't come out good. Here it is. Hello, how are you? And I made a thing like this. And I put something over like a little rag. Hello, how are you? And I did the other one on the other hand also. So they were like talking to each other. And the kids were amazed. Oy, they were so interested in this, right? Hello, hello, my name is, it's not coming out good. Hello, my name is this. Okay. And I got an idea to do it. Okay, so the kids, they were just amazed. Ooh, they were really looking. So anyway, their parents came back and I said, okay, that's all, kids. They said, hey, where are the people? Where are the people? I said, there's no people. It was just me. It was just my hand. It was not really. I said, no, we want the people back. I couldn't convince them. I tried to show them little by little. Finally, their parents just had to take them away. It's the same thing with Paro, right? Moses came into Paro and he said, Paro, you're just being created by God. You're not a real existence in yourself, just like these things are not real people, right? They're not real people. It just looks that way to you, right? It just appears. Let's see, how do we do this? It just looks to you, right? Hello, how are you? It looks that way, but you open it up and you realize there's nothing there. The same thing with Paro. Paro, his whole existence and his whole being comes from God, but God just wanted him to be the ruler of Egypt and everything, and he didn't care about him being the ruler of Egypt. Just don't go against your creator. Don't make believe that you're really a separate existence. Just like these things, they're really just created by me. They're just, and as soon as I let it go, then there's no more people there anymore. But the children didn't want to believe it. It's the same thing with us. The whole entire world is really a creation of God. We want everyone to see, not that the world does not exist. That's where my metaphor falls away. Not that that world doesn't exist. The world does exist, but you have to realize that there's a creator that creates it. That's the point. And that's what he wanted Egypt to know. And that was the purpose of the serpent. The staff, which is holiness, became a serpent made to show that the whole world is really being created by God all the time. And it goes back to a staff to show that that's the goal, that the world should realize its source. That's the whole idea of going out of Egypt and the Jewish people. Okay, now let's do Dvar Malchut. 1 second. Here we go.
Are you doing Basi Wagani?
Yes, I am. God willing.